I've been in this industry for a really, really long time. When I got started in this industry, this idea of challenges never existed. I think video series were brand freaking new. I think webinars were really the only way people were selling things online. It was about a long time ago. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is what I would do if I started all over again. Well, that answer has changed so many times over the years because this industry is just advancing and changing so fast and so rapidly. But there's one thing that I realized. It's that if you're able to master your messaging, master your communication, and understand how to actually sell, however you want to say it, it doesn't really matter what strategies you use. So the way in which I would start all over again, if I had basically $0 in the bank, if I had no money, I had nothing, if I had absolutely nothing, there is a process that I would follow in order to generate revenue quickly, fast, and able to scale in a very manageable way. So this episode is dedicated to that. I'm going to bring you through exactly what I would do if I was to start all over again and I had absolutely nothing. So if that's interesting for you, well, keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about what I would do if I had to start all over again from scratch. I've learned a lot of lessons over the last 8 to 10 years. I actually don't know when I officially started this online business thing, but it's been minimum of 8 years. It could have even been up to 11 years. Who knows? I've been dabbling in it for a while, and I've learned a lot of really valuable lessons. And here I am today sharing those lessons with you guys. And so for those of you who are watching the video stream over there on YouTube, you probably noticed some harsh shadows. It's because it is nighttime. I just got done coming off of a 5-day solo parenting stint, which honestly I love. I actually don't think it's that hard. I love when I have my kids on my own, we just go off and do adventures all day, load them up in the truck, and we go off into the forest and bring BB guns and cans with us, or, look for lakes and go fishing, or, we just have a lot of fun. But what made it this difficult, this 5-day period difficult, was that it was during a very, very busy season. Right now we have a lot going on. There's so much change and evolution. We have a launch coming up, and we're working on a evergreen and open enrollment process. There's so much copy and so many ads and so much messaging that needs to be done. That this 5-day solo parenting trip, period, whatever you want to call it, I had to do work during it. And that made it very, very difficult because I was exhausted at the end of the day, after managing 3 kids and just going off and having adventures and doing all that stuff. And then getting them down, cooking dinner, cleaning, and then having to work after that. So it was pretty exhausting. So anyways, the point of the story is that, I have to record now. My wife just got home and this episode had to get recorded. And so here I am. What is it? Monday night? I don't know, 8 or 9, 7 o'clock. I don't even know. I have my wine with me, although I'm not gonna be able to drink it because then that means I'm not talking. But anyways, that's why we're recording at night. And I just have to say, for those of you parents out there, for those of you who are a solo parent, mom, dad, whatever, and you're a solo parent and you're an entrepreneur and you have to work while raising your family and you don't have a lot of help, I don't know how you do it. Kudos to you. I commend you. You deserve to have, everyone deserves to have exactly what they want. And I believe if you work hard, you're going to have it. But gosh, the amount of work that you have to do to get it is just, it's a lot. And so hopefully this episode will help you, if that is you, speed up that progress. And hopefully we can help guide you through what I would do. And hopefully that helps speed it up for you so you can give your kids the life that you want. And that's what it's all about. So here's what I would do if I was to start all over again. I made a lot of mistakes and I've made learned a lot of lessons. And, my journey started, alarm going off. Okay. There we go. My journey started My business was registered in 2011. I didn't actually officially start my business. I was kind of like fumbling around, building websites, doing things like that. And then when my dad's company went under, I was just kind of still like fumbling around, building websites on the side. And it wasn't till maybe a year or two later where I officially started my own thing. The business was registered, but I was like, okay, I'm going all in on this one thing. And it was soldwithvideo.com. And back then, it was a video site. Well, and let me rewind. Rewind. I actually started building niche sites, and I did that for about a year. As soon as my dad's company kind of went under, and I was out on my own, I was building these niche sites. I was following Pat Flynn from the Smart Passive Income website, following his blog on how to build these niche sites. So it's these little sites that are around highly searched terms. So if someone, you found out someone was searching like refurbished refrigerators, for example, and there was no sites dedicated to refurbished refrigerators, then you would build a site, you put a lot of like blog posts on it, you'd have links going out, and you put AdSense, which is Google ads, and you would make money. They would rank in the search engines, you would get clicks, and people would click on the ads, and then you would make money. And I did that for 6 months to a year, just finding these terms. In fact, refurbishedrefrigerators.org was one of my highest producers, was producing like $600 a month, pretty much on autopilot. And I had built out, I don't know, a network of like 15 websites. And that was kind of my plan at the time, is like, let's build out a network of websites. And I was also in college building out humor websites. And one of my humor websites was beaned.com, and it's not around anymore, but it was getting over 100,000 unique visits per month and people watching funny videos and things like that. I just couldn't figure out how to monetize it. Looking back at it now, I wish I would have kept it, because I have a lot of ideas on how to monetize it now. But back then I didn't. So I think I sold it for like $8,000 to $9,000 or something like that. So started it, built it up from nothing, sold it for eight to 9,000. I had my niche sites working. I was doing like $1,000 to $2,000 a month on pretty much autopilot, and it was like this snowball. It was like this snowball at the top of the mountain, and it starts off small and slow, and then as it gets bigger and bigger, it goes faster and faster as it goes down the mountain. That's kind of what these niche sites were doing. They were scaling up. And that was my plan, is just to make $10,000 a month pretty much on autopilot, and not really have to work. And that was working. It was working really well, really, really well. And so that was my plan. That's what I wanted to do. And then one night, Google changed their algorithm, and everything that was like SEO'd, not according to their algorithm anymore, just got not ranked in the search results. And this was all search driven traffic. And so I lost pretty much all of my revenue overnight, like a year's worth of work, pretty much gone overnight, 6 months to a year's worth. So I started soldwithvideo.com, and I registered the business in 2011. And I think I started Sold with Video probably in 2013. So I guess it was like 10 years ago, something like that, 10 years ago. Maybe it's 2014. I don't know. I can't remember. So anyway, and I was selling real estate videos to real estate agents, and I had built this amazing website. And this website was basically a landing page. You could purchase what you wanted on it, how many videos you wanted. And then once you purchased, it brought you to a login area. You could upload your photos, your videos, your voiceover script, like choose music, and it would go to the system, this backend system that we had built out. And I had a team of virtual assistants and voiceover artists already lined up. I'd found them, lined them up, so that when an order came in, they would see a new order. They could log into their backend area. They could claim that order, so no other voiceover artist or virtual assistant or editor could claim it. And then they would have 24 hours to produce it, put it back in there, and then the editor would have 24 hours once the voiceover was done to create the video, send it back. And so we would have this beautiful system built out, and they would, a video would be done in 72 hours. So it was a beautiful system. I didn't have to do any work. So it was all like the order came in, all our team of people got notified. They edited everything in the back end. As soon as they got the first version done, they would hit complete. a notification would go out to the real estate agent. The real estate agent would look at it, submit any changes. It would go back to the team, the virtual assistant team. They would make their changes. When they hit complete, it would go automatically back to the real estate agent, and they would hit complete or more changes. And so, and I could look in the admin area, and I could look at the admin area and see how many orders were open, new, claimed, not claimed, and editing. I could view all of it. So I could log in the morning, look at our orders, and then leave for the day and check it in the evening. And so it was basically this beautiful system totally built out. The only problem is I never made a single sale. I couldn't sell, I couldn't sell the damn thing. And so I built out all of this whole beautiful system, which I learned how to create this sort of system from working with my dad's companies, because they had this whole back end system, because we were producing like, sometimes up to 2,000 videos a month at my dad's, company at the height of it. And so I learned how to build out the whole system, had one made for myself, and that was it. And I just couldn't figure out how to sell it. Real estate agents I found are, the top 1% are basically make all the money. And so, and I was a little bit before my time. You have to imagine this was like 10 years ago, 9 years ago. So it wasn't the same industry or market that it is today. And so that's kind of one of the first lessons. Like if I was to start all over again, I wouldn't spend all this time and money building out this back end. You have to understand it's all about the sales. It's all about the money. It's all about making money, and business has to run on money. And it doesn't run off of a nice website, a beautiful system, a back end. All of those things become necessary and required when you actually have sales. And I don't think a lot of people get that. Your course, your program, your Kajabi, your website that you spend all this time building, it's not necessary until you actually have sales. And that was one of the biggest lessons I learned, because shortly after that, what I started to do was go door to door selling video packages to real estate agents. So what I ended up doing was taking the SEO knowledge from those niche websites that I got, ranking them in Google, and I applied them to YouTube videos, and boom, 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 boom. They were ranking like within a couple of days, #1 in Google. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the easiest thing in the world. So I started selling that service to local business owners, and I would walk door to door. I didn't have a website on the service. I didn't have anything. I just had a flyer that I would hand out to businesses. And I signed one up for a $2,000 video and an SEO package for $200 a month. And then I was just selling them like boom, 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 one after another. And within 6 months, I built up a $14,000 a month business. Again, still didn't have a website, didn't have anything. And that was the biggest first lesson that I learned, was that the sales are the most important thing. And so when I start off this with my first thing that I would do if I was to start all over again, I want you to understand the intention of where I'm going with all of this is that it has to start with sales first. And I don't think a lot of people do that. They build out their program first, and I think that's a mistake. They build out their course first. I think that's a mistake. They build out their website. Sorry, but I think that's a mistake. They do all of this stuff that's totally unnecessary and doesn't bring in any revenue. And then 6 months later, they have no revenue inside of their business, and they're kind of screwed. And they're like, well, why don't I have any sales? It's because you haven't tried to sell anything. And so for me, I'm going to go through what I would do if I was to start all over again. And I want you to understand the intention is to bring in sales. Okay. So the very first thing that I would do. Oh, and by the way, this is for a course-based business. So this isn't like a local business. This isn't like, a startup or something along those lines. No investment or whatever. This is purely a course-based business, a coaching business. You have a coaching program or even a service. So here's what step number 1 is. Step number 1 is I would map out what knowledge I have. And I think this is pretty straightforward. I think a lot of people do this. They kind of have a knowledge and they're like, I'm going to go into this business because I have a lot of knowledge or experience in this. I would map out everything that I feel like I'm an expert in. And quite honestly, there's a few things. Like I could help beginner mountain bikers learn how to become better mountain bikers. I could help people run faster. I can help people market. I can help people with messaging. I can help people with online business. I can help people with business. I can help people with hiring. I can help people with like camping and backpacking. I can help people with off-roading because I love to do that. And again, there's all different levels. Like I could teach beginner mountain bikers and beginner off-roaders. Like I wouldn't say that I'm the world's best at any of those things, but I can definitely take someone who's a total novice and bring them to a point where they're like feel comfortable on the trails or comfortable backpacking or whatever it may be. Okay. So again, you don't have to be the world's biggest expert, but you could help someone get from A to B. And I would look at my knowledge number one. And I wouldn't look at purpose. Okay. So I think a lot of people get mixed up because they think that if they follow their purpose, they can make $1 million and change the world and all of that stuff. And I will say that following your purpose is probably a good idea. But the issue that I have is that your purpose always changes. I don't think I've met a single person who's had the same purpose from the moment they were born to the moment they died. And your purpose always changes, and it changes depending on how where life takes you, and we have no idea where that's going to go. And another word for purpose is also dharma. I believe we all came down here with a certain dharma or purpose or thing that we want to accomplish, but I don't think there's just one major thing. I think there's a series of things that we're supposed to do in this moment. So if we're supposed to be present in the moment, what is the thing that I'm supposed to do presently in this moment? And maybe that's going to lead you to learning a lesson that brings you to something else, to another purpose and a deeper purpose and something else. So for me, I don't think I would personally, and again, just because this is what would do doesn't mean that this is what you should automatically do. You should do what feels right to you. But I don't think that I would necessarily focus on purpose. I would actually focus my course-based business on what I have knowledge in, number one. And that's the very first thing that I would do is I would map out everything that I have knowledge in or how I can help people. And the other thing is that sometimes people they follow their purpose too much and they get too much into impact and they haven't figured out how to build a business model around it. And you have to understand if you're going to have your business be your purpose, you absolutely need a business model around it. If you don't, you're not going to make any impact. So that's the other thing is that if I focus on something that I can actually sell and profit from first, I can figure out the purpose piece later. That's my perspective on it. And I believe that if you are eventually finding something that you're good at, you have experience in, your purpose and dharma in the past have led you to having those experiences, which have now given you the knowledge. And so in some way, when we focus on our knowledge, we're actually honoring our past purpose, our past experience, our past dharma. And so that's why for me, I'm like, I'm just going to trust in what I have knowledge in, trust that the universe has guided me on this specific path to give me that knowledge, to give me that experience, to lead me to where I need to go. So that's the way I look at it. The other thing too is you have to understand that people aren't going to buy your purpose. No, to be honest with you, and if you have kids in the car, maybe mute it because I'm about to lay a bomb that you may not want them to hear. But I'm just going to be honest with you guys. No one gives a shit about your purpose. No one does. They really don't. Like no one cares about fulfilling your purpose. They care about fulfilling their purpose or solving their problems. So what you want to do, like for example, I believe that we should get rid of old industry norms inside of our space to create a better world for the next generation. But you're not going to buy my messaging program because you're like, you know what, Brandon, I believe in that purpose too. Here's $3,000. I'm sorry, but like, you're not going to do that. And if you want to, DM me and I'll give you my PayPal address and you can send me $3,000 and I'll let you be a part of my purpose. Chances are no one's going to do that. We get about 2,000 downloads per episode. And 2,000 of you guys listening, not a single one of you is probably going to do that. However, if I can align that purpose with something that serves you, that solves a problem first, I help you solve a problem. And in the journey of solving that problem, I can align you with the purpose. That's when we create a movement. Let me give you an example. My intention when anyone joins my program is to help you get what you want. I want you to have effective messaging. I want you to create demand. I want you to speak and pull people in. I want you to command the room when you talk. I want you I want people DMing you, asking how they can work with you. I want you to do a webinar and people are like willingly show up. I want all of that stuff for you. That's my number one intention. Now, when you're in the program, We do that by changing the way you communicate. We do that by attacking old industry norms. Part of it is attacking old industry norms that don't serve people anymore. That's part of our process. And in doing that, if I'm effective in leading you in that process, you're going to change the industry, your niche for the better so that our next generation has a better world to live in. And you're a part of that. But do you see how that purpose, that dharma that I'm living right now, that purpose of why I do what I do, that is a result that happens when I give you the thing that you want. So I don't lead with my purpose necessarily. We do incorporate it in our messaging. But if I'm going to run an actual profitable business, I'm not going to be led by purpose first. I'm going to be led by giving you results. And when you have the results, then my purpose is going to be fulfilled. And that's the way I look at it. So I actually don't look at purpose first. I look at what results can I deliver for people? And then how can I take that result and align it to my dharma and my purpose in the moment? And I think a lot of people have it backwards where they focus on the purpose first. So number one thing for me is I would just map out everything I have knowledge in, everything I have experience in. Okay. That's number one. Number two would be I would align my knowledge with problems. So the very next thing I would do, and I think this is one of the biggest steps that most people miss, is I would look at what problems am I actually solving for people with all of the knowledge and experience I have. So I would go to that map that I have out and I would look at, okay, I have experience in mountain biking, off-roading, fishing, messaging, marketing, online business, building websites. I would go through everything that I have experienced and that I think I could feel like I'm an expert in, somewhat of an expert, even if it's like I help beginners go to intermediates or whatever it is, or I help people who've never done it before go to beginners, like whatever I feel like I could be an expert in that space. Again, expert doesn't mean you're the top of top. It means you can take someone from point A to point B. So again, if someone wants to mountain bike and they've never mountain biked before, I feel like I'm an expert in taking that absolute beginner and getting them to like do their first trail ride. I'm an expert and I could definitely do that. I can teach them turning and how to build strength. And I can teach a lot. I can teach the fundamentals and the basics. Okay. So what I would do is I would align my knowledge with problems. And I don't think a lot of people do this. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm an expert in this. I want to talk about this. I'm just going to go do this. And they never consider what problem they're actually solving for people. You guys have to understand, people aren't going to buy your knowledge just because they want to be as smart as you. They want to buy your knowledge because you're solving a problem for them. Sometimes you don't need to talk about A to Z. Some of you guys are creating programs that are A to Z and you don't need to. You could just talk about A to N or M or A to B. It doesn't matter. Some of you guys are putting together programs and just giving all of your knowledge away inside of a program without considering what problem is this actually solving for people. And I'll be honest with you, that is a big problem. Not knowing the problem you solve is a big problem in itself. So very first thing I would do is map out what problems I actually solve for people. After that, the next thing I would do is I would look at the caliber of the problems that I'm solving. And again, these have to be real, actual, tangible, specific problems. These can't be like, oh, I help overwhelmed moms. No. Because when I say overwhelmed moms, that can be interpreted a million different ways. If I said overwhelmed, one mom might go like, oh yeah, I am so overwhelmed because I can't get my kids out of the house in the morning on time for school. Or another mom might think, I'm overwhelmed because I have so many household chores to do, or whatever. The list goes on and on. I don't want these problems to be open to interpretation. When you hear me talk about these problems, you know exactly what I mean. So you're an overwhelmed mom who yells at least at their kid 2 times every morning to get to eat their food. And half the times they don't even brush their teeth and you're running 5 minutes late out the door. Like you're either doing that problem, you either have that problem or you don't. Like there's no room for interpretation. It's either a yes or a no. And so I would map out these problems and I would look at which problem is the biggest. Which problem, if I solved, would add the most amount of value to someone's life? Or what series of problems? Because obviously people are going to be experiencing several problems. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see which part of my knowledge is going to be the most profitable, the most valuable. Because sometimes the reason why you're not making sales is that you've never chosen a problem in the first place to solve, or you decided to choose a problem that people aren't willing to pay for in order to get fixed. They're just willing to deal with it. And you're trying to convince them they shouldn't be willing to deal with it. And that's not going to work out very well for you. So what I would do is figure out what that problem is going to be, or that series of problems. I would pick like 3 to 5 problems, and that becomes my niche. My niche becomes people that have this problem and have these identities is what I do. So it would be like, stay-at-home moms who have this problem, this problem, this problem. That's my niche. Or entrepreneurs or course creators who have this problem, this problem, and this problem. It's an identity, like course creator, stay-at-home mom, parent, volleyball player, mountain biker. Like those are all identities. People will say, I am a mountain biker. I am a volleyball player. I am a stay-at-home mom. Those are identities. So identity, and then problems that identity has that I can solve. That becomes my niche. I don't care about categories. I don't care about, okay, it's this category. No, it's this identity with these problems. That's my niche. And so what I would do after that is I would start putting out content. So step number 3 is I would start putting out content based off of those problems and based off of my knowledge around those problems. So I would put out thought reversals, educational content, which by the way, doesn't mean tutorials. I would put out tutorials. I would put out how-to content, but I would also do videos like top 5 mistakes, or let me break down this video. Like we've done that in the past. I've taken Gary Vaynerchuk's video and broken down the messaging in his video and why it works. Those are all educational videos. I would put out connection video. I would talk about my purpose. Again, we can incorporate purpose, but we don't necessarily need to, but in the beginning, but I personally would, because that allows you to build a connection with your audience. So I'd be putting out this content. And what I would be doing is not putting out the content to build an audience. I would be putting out the content for testing purposes. I want to know what content is getting the best traction. Because again, I don't want to guess at anything. Because if I'm starting over from zero, by the way, this cost me no money to do everything I've outlined so far. But if I was to start over from zero, I would literally take out a loan or a credit card, and you'll see why in a second. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to start and see how much organic traction I can get by pushing out this content. I would focus on problems first. And when I mean problems, here's what I mean. For example, in my space, not my space, the social media site, but my industry, my branding lucrative space that I'm in, I wouldn't want to guess at the topics, and I don't want to put out content to try to build an audience. In our industry, I think that's kind of what everyone does, is like they say, focus on what you know and teach what you know and put out a ton of how-to and tutorials and build an audience. I think that's BS, to be honest with you. There's so many faster ways to do it. So what I would do is put out a lot of that content organically, and I would test what works. And when I say problems, here's what I mean. In my business, the biggest problem is that people put out a lot of how-to content and they don't get any traction. So that's the problem. So the way I would turn that problem into an effective title would be something like how to create engaging content, because the opposite of putting out content that doesn't get traction is what? Engaging content. So I would still put out tutorials and things like that too, in addition to everything else that I'm doing. But those how-to titles would stem not from my knowledge or solutions, they would stem from problems. So I'd identify the problems, and then I would do a how-to video on the opposite of those problems. And I'd put out as much as I can. And the reason why I'd put out as much as I can is because I want to test. I want to sell as soon as I freaking can. But I don't want to guess at what's going to convert. So I'm going to pick I'm going to just put content out there, and I'm going to see what works the best. And hopefully I'll build an audience in the meantime. And if I do build an audience in the meantime, what I would probably do is start asking people, can I help you for free? And I would look for 1 or 2 qualified people that I absolutely know I can 100% get results. People that have a network or have some sort of rapport, if it's possible to find those people. And I would do it for free, and I would get them results. And the reason why I would get them results is so that I have case studies and testimonials, number 1. Number 2 is what I would do is I would ask them if they had any referrals or people that need the service that I offer, so that I can start making money ASAP, or I would try to sell them after the free thing. So I would say, okay, cool. We did like a month worth of whatever. We got you these results. I can continue for a price. And now I have sales. Now I have income. So again, for me, it's all about let's find the messaging. Let's find the biggest problems. Let's find the knowledge we have. Let's start putting out content. Let's work for free, but let's be intentional and smart about it so that we can line up those free people for sales and money. And within 30 days, or however long it takes, which for me, the ideal thing would be within 30 days, I could have some paid clients. That's kind of my intention here. That's where I'm going with or aiming for. So again, what I would do is, let's just recap, take all my knowledge, put it on a piece of paper. I would align it with the biggest problems, figure out all the problems that knowledge solves, find the biggest ones, ask myself, do I want to go in that space? Great. Let's figure out the identity. Let's figure out the main problems. That becomes your niche. Let's start putting out content based off of those problems, based off that knowledge. If you're getting some traction, ask if you can work for people for free, but be intentional. Just don't do, work with anyone. And then hopefully you can close some of those into sales. So the next thing that I would do is, as we start to put out this content, I would look and test to find what winning topics and themes are doing the best. Because what I want to do next is I want to start selling. I want to start doing webinars. I want to start selling some stuff. So I would look for what topics do the best within my ecosystem, because now I have an ecosystem. I have problems. I have a niche. I have an identity I'm going after. I'm creating content for them. That's my ecosystem. Let's look at what's working the best. Now, if you're not getting any traction, you're like, I don't know what is going to be working the best, Brandon. I don't know. Totally fine. So here's where the credit card and the loan comes into play. So what I would do is I would take all of that content that I'm doing, which by the way, should be free. You shouldn't have to pay for any of this stuff. And if you do, it's very minimal. You should be able to push out content very minimally. And by the way, this doesn't have to be in videos. You could do image sliders on Instagram. You can record videos with your phone. It doesn't need to be fancy. What I would do is I would start running the videos that I do, if I do videos, and I would run them as through play campaigns to my target audience. And if I didn't have any money, I would literally put it on a credit card or take out a loan, and I start running through plays. What through plays are going to do is they're going to give me testing really fast. I could literally get like 1,000 views on a piece of content from a targeted audience overnight. And that's going to give me so much data on what's converting and what's not, what topics are hitting, what are not, what messaging is working and what's not. Number one. Number two is you're actually building an audience. Facebook will track who's watching it, who's engaging with it. Now you have an audience. So now I'm building up an audience, and it may not be fans, like they may not hit the like button or the follow button, but you can still track them. They still show that they're interested in what you're talking about. So that's what I would do. Find those winning topics. Then what I would do, once I find the winning topics, I'd put a webinar together and some ads together off of that one topic. And now I know the problems. Now I know the topics. Now I know what topic is working. And I already have a built-in audience from the through play campaigns, people that have engaged or watched the videos. So I would, again, take out more money on that credit card or that loan. And I would start doing weekly webinars. And by the way, I just want to, again, remind you guys, this is what I would do. You have to remember, I still have all of my experience with ads and all of that stuff too. So I'm not saying that this is what you should do, just telling you what I would do. And you can take the lessons from this and make your own decisions on what's best for you. But that's what I would do, is I would start doing small weekly webinars. And I would run those webinars to my warm audience that I have, as well as cold traffic. And I would get as many people as I can on these weekly webinars. And I would test that topic that proved in our content to work really, really well. And I would just expand on it inside of our webinar. And for those NGM Plus students, I would follow the exact same framework that we gave you guys for our webinar framework. And I would follow the same ad frameworks that we gave you guys as well. And I would use the same email sequence that we gave you guys. So I would just follow literally like what we have proven already works. And I would just do it every week. Now, keep in mind, just because you have a proven framework doesn't mean the inside of that framework works. So every week, what I'm doing is I'm testing different messaging, testing different pitches, testing different ways to sell stuff. I'm just testing and testing and testing. Maybe I'm changing the title of the webinar, seeing what gets the best results. And all I'm doing every week is just testing. I wouldn't do a big launch. I wouldn't do any of that stuff. I would just small amounts of people every single week for a couple months. I'm going to make sales. And here's what I would sell. I would not put a course together. I wouldn't spend time putting a course together because that's going to take months. Putting an actual real effective course together is slow. It takes time. It is like if you're going to do it right. I don't have time. I want sales. I want money because when I have money, then I can hire people that can help me build out the course. So what I would do is I would personally sell a one-to-one offer. I would do one-to-one coaching or consulting. So now what I have I have content going out every day or every other day, purely for based off of the problems and the things that my knowledge can help with. I would be paying attention to that. I have through plays going, and now I have weekly webinars going. And then I hopefully am making some sales. So I'm doing that free work. I have some case studies and testimonials. I'm selling one-to-one. What one-to-one is going to allow me to do is charge a little bit of a higher price point, but it's also going to allow me to work with people so I can guarantee I get more case studies, more testimonials. And that's why I would start with one-on-one because it's fast. I can literally sell it tonight. All it's going to require is my time, which, is not the most ideal situation, but in the beginning, that's what you want to do. Because you need case studies, you need testimonials, you need experience, you need mastery. And a lot of people will skip the one-on-ones and they start selling a course. And it's like, you don't really understand your people. And when you hear someone talk and you get that feeling of like, wow, that person knows their shit, like that comes from mastery and experience. And that comes from doing one-on-one work and, or at least group work at a very minimum. And there's a lot of people that speak too much from the knowledge and not the mastery. And so that's what I would do. And I would test and I would tweak and I would build. Next step is build the case studies, build the testimonials. And now I have revenue coming in. And what I would probably do is charge a monthly retainer because I have reoccurring coming in. I don't want to have to make that sale 2 or 3 times, 4 times. I want a one-on-one offer that's reoccurring. So it's either mentorship or it's some sort of like result-driven thing for 6 months, or there's something where it's not just, okay, cool, they paid me once and it's done. It's like, no, it's a monthly sort of thing. Build the case studies, build out the testimonials. And that's what I would do. That's how I would, if I was to start all over, that's what I would do. Then the next phase after that is now I'm going to build out a course. Now I'm going to build out the program. Or a group program. And I would sell it and offer it to my audience. My audience is being built. Because you have to understand, even when I'm fulfilling on these one-on-one clients and doing all that stuff, I'm still putting out content, doing all of that stuff, right? Building the audience, doing all the things that you would normally do. And I already know that I'm going to hit a breaking point at some point because that's not a sustainable business model. Putting out content, doing one-on-ones. The only way to make more money is to charge more. And I know that going into it, but you have to look at the intention. The intention is to build case studies, build testimonials. That's the whole intention. Get revenue into my business without wasting time building out a full-fledged course, without building a website, which by the way, you don't need a website for any of this stuff. Maybe some landing pages and stuff, but you don't need a freaking website. And so again, it's the fastest and the smartest way to get revenue in the door, figure out my messaging, figure out the way I'm going to sell this, figure out what the offer is, figure out the biggest problems, and then bam, I would start selling this thing. It's one-on-one. And then once I hit my plateau where I'm like, I can't do anymore, I would transfer all of my one-on-one students into a group program. So I take all of my one-on-ones and I would say, guys, we're no longer offering one-on-one. I know that, that you guys probably enjoyed the one-on-one, but I've started to realize, this is how I'd phrase it to them. I started to realize that a lot of you are asking the same questions, and some of you guys are asking questions that everyone else in the group would benefit from hearing. And I think it would benefit you by putting you into a group setting. And so not only are you going to get more value, but I'm actually going to charge you a little bit less. And so what's going to happen now is I have a group setting. I saved my time and they're getting more value and it's a smaller price, but now it frees my time up to create a full-fledged program. So now I can put together official downloads and PDFs and videos and everything that I need to put together. And I would launch it to the world. And you don't need to build the course first. You could always like beta launch it, sell it before you build it sort of thing. But the point is what I would do is some sort of official launch, spend some money, because by now I know what themes work. I know what messaging works. I have case studies. I have testimonials. I have revenue coming in. And then I would do some sort of big launch within the first 3 to 6 months. Hopefully that's where I would be at 3 to 6 months. And I would do some sort of big launch to cold traffic. And I would build out the course. And now I start to have a scalable model. And then from there, what I would do is now is when I would focus on systemizing and building out team. So now what I would do, because now we have the revenue and I would be strapped on time now, is now we would focus more on systems. And who knows, by now I should have, maybe I should have been hiring already, or I would have hired already, just depends on the workload. But if I haven't already, definitely hiring at this point, definitely building out systems, definitely moving responsibility off of myself. And here's what I mean by that. Right now, inside of my company, I'm not responsible for after the sale. Julie is. So that means she's responsible for customer support, building it out, making sure it's systemized. She's responsible for upsells and upgrades. She's responsible for failed payments. She's responsible in building systems around that. She's responsible for it. I'm not responsible. She does check-ins with me, and I do check-ins with her, and we have KPIs and all that stuff. And, Matt has his responsibilities and Brittany has hers. Jesse has hers. I'm not responsible for social media. I'm not responsible for growth. My team is. So what I would start to do is look at what responsibilities do I have that take up the most amount of time, and can I hire for those? Can I get someone in to systemize it for me, to be responsible for it? And that's where I would start going, because by now it's time for scaling. It's time. And hopefully by now it'd be at the multi-six figure level, which is where a lot of people get stuck. And my messaging is going to need to evolve here as well. My messaging needs to evolve to the masses. And then what I would basically do is I would continue with the content, focus off problems. I would discover new problems. I would evolve my messaging, evolve my content. I would personally still launch too. I like launching. I think I know there's a lot of people that just are like, oh, all about evergreen or all about launching. I think it's a blend of both. I personally like a blend of both. I think it's up to preference. I like launching. I think launching smart. I think launching gives you a lot of benefits that you do not get in evergreen and in open enrollment. And we've been playing around a lot with the evergreen and open enrollment, and it's not the same. Like evergreen it's tough. It takes people sometimes a while, like cold traffic, a while to warm up to finally buy. Like, those those days of taking someone cold and having them buy like within a couple of days, it's just difficult. At least that's been my experience. People need to stay in that system for a while before they finally buy. And that may not be everyone's experience, but that's been mine. Whereas launching, like sometimes we have people that just enroll and then within a day, they're like buying a $3,000 program from us because of the energy of the launch. You don't get that same energy in open enrollment and stuff. So what I would do is move my business where I'm launching once or twice a year and then open enrollment the rest of the year. And that would, probably get us to the point where hopefully by that point, we're doing $1 million or more per year. And that's what I would do if I was to start all over again. I didn't do that when I started. I would build out a course. I probably did the same thing a lot of you guys are doing. I would build out a course. Then I would try to figure out based off my knowledge, not asking about the problems that I can solve. I would start putting out content around my knowledge, around the solution, thinking if I built an audience, then I would sell my course. And I already built out my course, already built out my website. I was probably, 3 to 6 months into my business without making any money. Content wasn't taking off. And it's because I was focused so much on the solution. I never got clear on the identity, what the problems are, what knowledge should I be doing all my knowledge or just a little bit of my knowledge? And I absolutely did not focus on messaging. How do I communicate this? What do I communicate? How do I communicate it? Because that's the foundation of everything. It's the foundation of your strategy. That's the foundation of your ads, your emails, your content. It's the foundation of everything. And I know there's some people here listening that are not an NGM or NGM plus. And usually it's because you don't have a big enough problem yet where you need us. But that hopefully, the day's coming, hopefully not. I really hope it's not, but chances are it probably will at some point. And I don't know if that day's coming when you hit 100,000 or 200 or 400 or 500 or a million or 2 million. We've had people that hit their plateau at $0, and we've had people that come to us and hit their plateau at $2 and $5 million, and we're able to help them. But there eventually will be a plateau at some point. But if you're not an NGM or NGM plus, then you either haven't, needed to focus on messaging yet. But for me, it's the very first thing that we should focus on, because what happens is when your messaging is dialed in it makes all the strategies that didn't work for you in the past all of a sudden start working. And it makes all those courses that you bought that don't work, quote unquote, don't work. They make them work. Why? Because like when you buy that course on a new strategy and that new strategy doesn't work, it's not usually the strategy that wasn't working. It's how you were communicating within that strategy. It's what you were saying within it that didn't work. When you buy a new course, it's not, the course works because it worked for someone at some point. But what you don't see is like, how did they communicate? Who was their niche? Did they figure out the right problem? Did they do all this underlying work? And did you not do it because you just didn't know how? And or maybe the person who created the course didn't realize that that's what they did. Sometimes people get really lucky with their messaging and they get to six figures or multiple six, and then they finally hit a plateau and they're like, oh, you know what? I was never intentional in messaging and just got really lucky in the way I communicated. And I hit success and now I'm stuck. Now I'm plateaued. And so usually what happens with messaging is it becomes the very first thing that you need to focus on. And that's where I would focus on, is like, and that's that process I laid out for you is me focusing on messaging. Let's figure out the problems, the identities. Let's figure out the content that works. Let's figure out the problems. Let's figure out the titles. Let's test with weekly webinars. It's not that I'm testing a strategy every week. I'm testing the messaging every week, the communication, what copy, what headlines, what all of that is messaging. Your copy, your headlines, the way in which you talk, how you communicate, how you teach is all messaging. And that's where I'd focus on. So let me see, is there anything else? No, that's it. So that's what I would do if I was to start all over again. There's a part of me that kind of wants to do it just to see how I would do. But anyways, if you have any questions, let me know. And if you haven't left us a review on iTunes, I would appreciate it so much. Thank you guys for tuning in this week. And I'll catch you next week. And we have a really cool episode next week. It's all about testing. And we talked about testing today, but we're going to dive even deeper into it next week. So get ready. It's going to be a good one. And I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.